Hey, do-it-yourselfers, if your '03, actually '02 through about 2012, I believe, Avalanche or Sierra or a full-size GM chassis, climate control is stuck in the defrost mode. In other words, you can get hot and cold air just fine, but it only comes out of the defrost vents. This baby right here is probably the culprit. That is called the mode door actuator, and you can see it's attached to a cam. I've basically got both of them put together just for illustrative purposes, and we'll go show you where that is here on the car in just a second. This is the OEM version, and I've basically loosened everything up and taken one of the gears out. These are the insides of it. You do not need to do this. I'm just basically letting you know that in my case, this large drive gear here has a huge crack in it, which was why it basically failed. You can see on the other side here, you've basically got a cam. There's two slots up near the top and then one in the middle, and I'll show you what those are for in just a second. You can buy units where you've got the motor and the cam all together. Excuse me, or you can just buy the motor itself. It'll end up being about $10 cheaper, depending on what you choose. I would recommend the second option. Just buy a replacement motor, because you can basically just take a Phillips head screwdriver or a punch to that little baby in there and pop it right out. And these things, as you can see, just plastic. They don't fill very often. I bought an extra one because I made some mistakes, which is part of the reason why I'm doing the video, so you guys don't make the same mistakes I did. Anyway, there's the old one. Set that baby out of the way, and we'll head out to the car here in a minute. Now, this cam is going to be very tricky to get back in. Alright, if you look at the back side of it, there's a little nipple on the casing inside the car. You're going to have to fit this over. There is a larger nipple that is basically going to be kind of a limit switch that this is going to have to go over. And then you can see you've got two raceways, whatever you want to call them, that you'll need to install a couple of things in. And this is where I had the most difficulty by far. Alright, this particular inside track here is for the vent through the floor position. This outside track here, especially this little area right in here, is where the defroster door cam goes in. And you can see they're kind of sequenced. Excuse me again, getting over a sinus infection. Such that this part of the travel here, and we'll see the cogs in a second, but this part of the travel here gets you from vent down to floor, and then as it motors farther, it'll activate that defrost. Now, I'm going to try and get this all in one take, so we'll head out to the car. And if you're wondering where it is, driver's side footwell, it's basically going to be up above excuse me, your right knee. So we'll go ahead and scoot on down in there. Now you can see I've removed some of the ducting. Specifically, there is a piece that attaches onto here, goes out. I pulled that out. I also pulled the distribution duct on the other side out, so that I could essentially push this out of the way to get a little bit better view of what's going on. Alright, and as you can see, once I get this baby focused, there's our new motor and actuator installed. That little white cam, okay, right up here, that basically actuates from vent down through floor. The one you can't see, now that it's installed, at least can't see it quite as well, is back up behind the motor here, and that's where the defroster door cam goes in. Alright, you can take this out as a single unit. You can see one screw down on the bottom, another screw right up here on the top, which also holds a wire loom. Once you take those screws out, you'll basically need to just kind of work the entire assembly back about 1/2 of an inch, and the defroster door will release almost immediately. It's not really held in by anything. This white cog up here, you may have to horse it around a little bit. Also, if you need to, you can just take a flathead screwdriver and gently, I repeat, gently pry that little white thing out a little bit to get the cam to release out of the track, and then you can basically pop it off. See, there's your 5-pin connector. So like I said, just those 2 screws and the connector, very gently with the flat blade screwdriver if you need to. That'll get you out. Alright, so there it is. And head back into the garage and give you some final pointers. I tried to install this as a unit, which did not work very well. The problem is you've basically got 3 or 4 things to try and line up all at the same time. It's not like you can do one and move on. So that's why I highly recommend separating the motor from the cam. If you only install the cam, you can, like I said, very gingerly work the white cog with the teeth in it through here and about to mid-range, and then you can concentrate on the defrost door flapper, which we did not see, but which is also up there, basically to the right of where that white vent cog was. You only have a couple, 3 things to line up in that case, and you basically can get this thing installed. And like I said, once you've got it securely over that nipple there, and you can actually rotate it, and you don't feel any binding, you don't feel any stoppages. In other words, the cam will run from the stop here all the way to the stop here with that little nipple that's sticking out. Then you should be good to go ahead and install the motor. Something else I highly recommend, after several tries, run this cam basically where it needs to be so that the motor will fit over it. You can see it's basically flat on 2 ends, round on 2 other. So run the cam around to where it needs to be, just slip it over there, and then you'll basically install these 2 screws, and that'll basically get it into place. Here's the secret ingredient. What you'll need to do then is, once this baby is on here, like so, okay, there it is. Once that is in place, and before you plug in the electrical connector, make sure you just gently, with 1 or 2 fingers, run this thing all the way up to the defrost position. And you can double check that by turning on the fan and make sure that the air is actually coming out of those top defrost vents. Run it all the way over to the defrost position, tighten everything down, and that seems to be the secret sauce. I initially connected it where this thing went through, which was the floor position. It turns out that as soon as the car turns on, it basically captures whatever position the motor is in as the upper limit, i.e. the defrost limit. Well, it wasn't the defrost limit because I had it in the floor position. So I would go to vent, it would go all the way to vent. When I would go all the way back to defrost, it would actually stop at the floor position. So I needed to unplug it again. Basically, like I said, gingerly run the cam all the way over to the defrost position so that you could feel the air coming out of the top. At that point, go ahead, turn the climate control off, plug everything back in. Nothing should happen. And then when you do turn the fan on and select any position, that's when it'll start to motor to where it finds the vent position. So again, I apologize for the cough. I wanted to get this up there because there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube that kind of sort of talk about this, but they don't give you enough visuals. I'm kind of a visual learner. So again, these things very prone to failure. We saw the reason why. In my case, had the bad gear here. Again, you can just buy one of these units. You don't need to actually buy the cam as well, unless you want to. I've got an extra one. I'm not really sure if I'll ever need it again. But the motor should be plenty. Just like I said, pop it out with a punch or a Phillips head screwdriver and a very gentle tap with a hammer. As I said, got a couple of things to worry about. This will basically fit over a nipple in the defroster casing. And then you've got your limits here. You'll see basically a big spike sticking out that this will need to go over. Again, the inside track here is for that white cam that basically runs from vent down to floor, and then as it goes beyond floor, that's where the defroster door basically will kick in, and when it gets to here, you should be in defrost. Once you do get it installed, just to help the computer find out where the limits on this baby are, again, just run it very gently over to the full defrost position before you plug in the connector. It may take a couple of cycles of the key before the thing fully works, but after several frustrations and several attempts, I finally got mine fully operational. So that's basically it. Not the hardest thing in the world. I'd say if you know what you're doing and you use the tips and tricks that I gave you, you can probably knock this out in about 45 minutes to an hour. So good luck and happy motoring.